My grandfather's legendary story. In 1976, when I was 7 years old, I heard a story that changed my life. A distant cousin from our village told me, "Did you know? Your grandfather wasn't dead, he was buried by your father." I found it strange and ran back to ask my mother, "Mom, Kaije said that my grandfather wasn't dead and was buried by my dad. Is it true?" My mother replied, "It's true." In 1962, during the difficult times, everyone was starving. We finally waited until the busy period was over and harvested the wheat. We used the new wheat to make a meal of noodle soup. Your grandfather was already unwell during that time, and after eating a large bowl, he became drowsy and then went into meditation. Your grandfather often meditated, but that time he stayed in meditation for several days without moving. Your father, grandmother, and other family members mistakenly thought he had passed away and buried him. A few days later, one night, your father was woken up by your grandfather's spirit, who said, "I was just meditating. How could you bury me?" Well, it's done now. This story left a deep impression on me. Later, whenever my mother had time, she would tell me stories about my grandfather, and gradually, I became familiar with his experiences. He was born in 1895 and received some education. As a young man, he went to Xianyang to work as an assistant to an accountant in a shop. A few years later, one day, the accountant had a quarrel with the manager, left in a huff, and demanded a substantial raise. The manager, to find a replacement, had my grandfather temporarily fill in. A few days later, during a meeting with a business partner, the manager apologized, saying that their accountant had left and now a young man was filling in, and asked for understanding. Unexpectedly, the partner praised the young man, saying he was doing an excellent job, even better than the previous accountant. The manager contacted more partners, who all confirmed my grandfather's good performance. Delighted, the manager appointed my grandfather as the official accountant. Debt collection incident. A former warlord from Shaanxi, after losing power, moved to Xianyang and took goods from my grandfather's shop without paying. The shop tried to collect the debt several times without success. The manager then sent my grandfather. After unsuccessful negotiations, my grandfather, frustrated, said as he left, "You ruled Shaanxi. Now you think you can rule Shaanxi too." A few days later, a group came and ransacked the former warlord's home, leaving behind the same message, "You ruled Shaanxi. Now you think you can rule Shaanxi too." Terrified, the warlord thought the group was sent by my grandfather's shop and quickly repaid the debt. The manager and others praised my grandfather's capability. Later, it was found that the group was actually sent by a local warlord in Shaanxi, showing my grandfather's luck. The original manager retired and recommended my grandfather as the new manager. The shop, before my grandfather joined, had struggled. The original owner had fled, fearing creditors. The shop was revived through the efforts of the manager and the staff. As business improved, they decided to invite the original owner back as a gesture of gratitude. The owner initially thought they were there to collect debts, but when he learned the shop had recovered and was invited back out of gratitude, he accepted. The original owner only took dividends and did not participate in management thereafter. Health crisis. After becoming the manager, my grandfather's health deteriorated due to an unhealthy lifestyle of eating lavishly and playing mahjong late into the night. He contracted tuberculosis and had to return home to recuperate. During this time, he decided to improve his health and, through an introduction, became a disciple of Han Shitang, the founder of the double fragrance path of the Mind-Benevolent Society. This society revered Lishenzhen as the ancestor and also worshipped various deities such as Sanju Laomu, Maitreya Buddha, the Jade Emperor, Taishan Laojin, and Yuanqi Tianzun. After becoming a disciple, my grandfather respected his teacher and diligently practiced meditation. Soon, he could meditate for long periods. Practicing meditation is extremely difficult, as I have tried it myself and could only manage half an hour before experiencing severe back and leg pain. But my grandfather could meditate for long periods even while sleeping. His health improved significantly, and in 1942, while meditating, he saw the scene of Japan surrendering in 1945. Despite Japan's aggression in 1942 causing widespread concern, my grandfather reassured his family and friends that Japan would surrender in a few years. However, for revealing this prophecy, he was stripped of his foresight abilities by the guardian deities. My grandfather was also dedicated to giving back to the community, often distributing food and medicines to those in need. Each time he returned to his hometown from Xianyang, he brought carts full of supplies, including cloth and medicinal herbs, for the villagers. Sometimes people from neighboring villages would come to receive these supplies as well. He also practiced releasing animals, frequently buying live fish and other animals at markets to set them free. Another strange event in our family involved my grandfather's father's burial. Before his death, a feng shui master was hired to select the burial site and instructed strictly on the size of the grave, warning against digging even a shovelful more. Despite initial adherence, one person, driven by contrarian impulse, decided to dig one more shovelful, which disturbed a nest of rats. This incident was kept secret from our family. Afterwards, a series of peculiar events occurred. My grandfather and his brother had 4 sons, including my father, who all married but had no children. It wasn't until after my grandfather's burial in his chosen grave in 1960 that this changed. My father's cousin had a son in late 1963. My parents had my eldest brother in early 1964, followed by 2 more sons in 1967 and 1969. My father's brother also had 2 sons in 1966 and 1969. Only after the births did the villagers reveal what had happened during the grave digging. In the past, child betrothals were common in our hometown. When my parents were young, a matchmaker suggested my grandfather arrange a marriage for my father and a girl from another village. My grandfather hesitated but decided to consult his teacher Han Shitang's spirit. When Han's spirit was summoned, my grandfather asked about the match. Han's spirit advised, if the match is decided, let it be so. Thus, the marriage was arranged. Many years later, had this match not been made, it would have been missed. One of my grandfather's senior disciples served as a security team leader during the nationalist government period. Despite the chaotic society and numerous arrests, before executing prisoners, he always consulted Han Shitang's spirit, who would respond accordingly. After the nationalist government collapsed, the communist government sought to arrest him, suspecting he had killed many communists. He explained that he had not killed any communist but had protected and released many, providing a list of those he saved. After verification, the investigation was dropped. My grandfather's life was filled with legendary experiences, planting in me a deep yearning for spirituality and a commitment to spiritual practice from a young age.